I didn't know my life was about to split cleanly into two halves. Before that Wednesday night and after. It was an ordinary evening. I was rinsing plates in the kitchen, the warm water running over my hands, when Daniel walked in and dropped a sentence that felt small in his mouth, but detonated in my chest. "Emma called today," he said casually, leaning against the counter like he was commenting on the weather. "She wants to grab drinks tomorrow night, just to catch up." I froze. Emma was his ex, 3 years together, the woman he dated right before me, the woman whose name still appeared in old tagged photos he never quite deleted. I slowly set the plate down. "Can you repeat that?" I asked. He smiled, that easy, charming smile that had once made me feel chosen. "It's nothing, Layla. We ended on good terms. Just two old friends reconnecting." Two old friends. That's when it shifted. He added, almost laughing, "It would be weird if you came. Awkward having my fiancé sitting there." Weird for who? I realized then this wasn't a discussion. It wasn't a question. He wasn't asking how I felt. He was informing me. I stayed calm. I told him I understood. I think that disappointed him. He walked over, kissed my forehead, and said I was so mature compared to other women who would be jealous or controlling about their boyfriend meeting an ex. I smiled back. But something inside me had already gone still. Later that night, I heard hangers scraping inside the closet. He was trying on shirts, changing watches, adjusting his hair, putting serious effort into something that was supposedly innocent. When he stepped out wearing the navy blazer he wore on our first date, he did a little turn and asked, "How do I look?" "Perfect," I said softly. "Perfect for meeting your ex." He didn't catch the tone shift. He didn't notice I stopped using his name. He didn't see that I was watching him differently. The next evening, he left at 7 p.m., said he'd be back by 10, maybe 11 if they got into deep conversation. He told me he loved me before closing the door. I listened to his car pull away. Then I wiped the kitchen counter, walked to the bedroom, and opened the drawer where I kept the original ring box. 6 months ago, he'd slid that ring onto my finger with shaking hands. Tonight, I carefully slid it off. I placed it back in the box. Then I opened my laptop. If Daniel thought he was going out for drinks and coming home to the same woman, he had no idea what he'd already lost. I'm 29 years old. I work as a senior project coordinator at a construction management firm. Spreadsheets, deadlines, contracts, organized chaos. I've always been practical, grounded, the kind of woman who reads every clause before signing anything, except when it came to love. I met Daniel 2 years ago at a friend's birthday dinner. He was funny, effortlessly charming, the kind of man who made everyone at the table feel seen. When he spoke to me, he leaned in slightly, like what I was saying actually mattered. Later that night, he walked me to my car and said, "You're different, calm. I like that." I mistook that for respect. We started dating a week later. In the beginning, everything felt easy. He brought me coffee at work. I helped him reorganize his apartment. We cooked together, danced barefoot in the kitchen, planned weekend trips we couldn't quite afford, but took anyway. 6 months in, he told me about Emma. They were serious, he admitted one night, but it just faded. We wanted different things. He said it gently, like he had already processed it. I believed him. Looking back, there were signs I ignored. Last Christmas, he complained about spending too much time with my family. He said my sister Rachel was intense and that he felt judged by her. I brushed it off as insecurity. When we got engaged 6 months ago, he proposed in our living room, candles everywhere, hands trembling. I cried so hard I could barely say yes. He slid the $3,500 ring onto my finger and whispered, "I choose you." At the time, it felt solid, but after the engagement, subtle shifts began. He redecorated parts of my apartment without asking, rearranged furniture, swapped out artwork. "It's our space now," he'd say. When we started planning the wedding, he made decisions before consulting me. Venue shortlist, guest list edits, even cake flavors. I told myself he was just excited. There were also smaller things. He'd compare me to Emma occasionally, not cruelly, but casually. Emma used to love this restaurant. Emma hated horror movies too. Emma was big on spontaneous trips. At first, I laughed it off. But over time, it felt like I was competing with a ghost. Rachel noticed before I did. "You're adjusting yourself around him," she told me once over lunch. "You used to be firmer." "I'm compromising," I corrected her. "Compromise goes both ways," she said quietly. I didn't want to hear it. Daniel wasn't a villain. He wasn't cruel or explosive. He didn't yell. He didn't cheat. Not that I knew of, but he had a way of stretching boundaries just enough that you questioned your own reaction. If something bothered me, he'd tilt his head slightly and say, "You're overthinking." And I'd shrink a little. By the time that Wednesday night came around, I had already been shrinking for months without realizing it. So when he told me he was going out for drinks with Emma and laughed at the idea of me being there, something inside me didn't explode. It crystallized. Because suddenly, all the tiny adjustments, all the swallowed discomfort, all the moments I told myself to be cool and understanding lined up in perfect order. And I saw the pattern. He wasn't asking for trust. He was testing how much I'd tolerate. And that night, while he stood in our bedroom picking out a shirt for another woman, I finally stopped pretending I didn't see it. The strangest part wasn't that Daniel wanted to see Emma. It was how normal he wanted it to feel. Like he was training the moment into something harmless, by saying it with a smile, by keeping his tone light, by acting as if my reaction was already decided for me. After he told me, he stayed in the kitchen and watched my face the way people watch a fuse. If I flinched, he could call me insecure. If I argued, he could call me controlling. If I cried, he could call me dramatic. So I didn't give him anything. "I understand," I said, and kept my voice steady. His eyebrows lifted just a fraction. A flash of surprise, then something like disappointment, quickly covered by affection. He stepped closer, kissed my forehead, and said, "This is why you're different, Layla. Other women would make a scene." It sounded like a compliment, but it landed like a warning, because it wasn't, "Thank you for trusting me." It was, "Don't become the kind of woman I punish." Then he corrected himself mid-sentence. "It's just drinks," he said, but a beat later added, "Maybe coffee too, if it's quieter." Drinks. Coffee. He waved off the inconsistency when I pointed it out, like details didn't matter. But details were my job. Details were how you caught lies before they grew teeth. All evening, he floated around the apartment with this restless energy, checking his phone more than usual, humming under his breath, opening and closing drawers like he couldn't settle. I tried to finish cleaning. I tried to act normal, but my body wasn't fooled. My shoulders stayed tight. My stomach felt hollow. My hands moved slower over the dishes, as if my brain was buffering. Then the hangers started. That scraping sound in the bedroom, metal on metal, clothes shifting, the soft thud of folded shirts being tossed onto the bed. He was trying on outfits for an innocent catch-up. I stood in the hallway and watched him in the mirror without him noticing. He held up 2 different shirts to his chest, squinting like this was an important decision. He wasn't doing this for me anymore. I realized that with a clarity so sharp, it almost made me dizzy. When he finally stepped out, he was wearing the navy blazer I recognized instantly, the one he wore the night we met for our first real date, the same one he claimed made him feel confident. He grinned. "How do I look?" I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and said, "Perfect. Perfect for meeting your ex." He laughed. Not at the sarcasm. He didn't hear it. Just laughed like I'd given him permission. "Thanks, babe," he said, already glancing back toward the bedroom. And that's when something else surfaced in my mind. Rachel's voice. "You're adjusting yourself around him." I defended him. I defended our relationship. I defended my own choices. But the truth was, I'd been swallowing small discomforts for so long, they started to feel normal. Like the time he threw a quiet fit about Christmas. We'd been at my parents' house, surrounded by food and laughter, and Daniel leaned close to my ear and whispered, "We've been here long enough." I had asked, "Can we stay a little? My mom's been excited all week." His smile stayed in place, but his eyes hardened. "You always choose them over me." That night, on the drive home, he'd gone silent. The kind of silence designed to make you apologize, even when you hadn't done anything wrong. And I had apologized. Then there was the wedding planning. The way he'd casually taken control of it, framing it as initiative. "The venue I picked is perfect," he'd said, showing me photos on his phone. "Trust me." When I hesitated, when I said I wanted us to decide together, he sighed and said, "Why do you make everything a debate?" So I stopped debating. Little by little, I started becoming a version of myself that was easier for him to handle. And now, here he was, telling me I couldn't come, laughing about it, then praising me for being mature. I kept replaying that word, mature. It was the same word men used when they wanted women to stay quiet. That night, after he went to bed, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Daniel's breathing was slow and even beside me, but my mind wouldn't settle. I tried to tell myself it really was nothing, but then I pictured him sitting across from Emma in a dim bar, leaning in the way he leaned in with me, laughing too loud, remembering their inside jokes. And I imagined her looking at his ringless hand and wondering if he was still hers in some way. The air in my chest tightened. I rolled over and looked at him, at the man I'd agreed to marry, the man whose family already called me future Mrs. Carter, like it was decided. I wanted to believe he loved me. And Daniel had been hungry for attention long before that Wednesday night. I just hadn't wanted to see it. The next day, I moved through work like a ghost. Emails, meetings, phone calls, everything felt muted, like I was underwater. My coworkers laughed at something near the coffee machine, and I couldn't even force a smile. At 4:45 p.m., Daniel texted, "Leaving soon. Don't wait up. Love you." I stared at the screen. No, "Are you okay?" No, just a casual announcement, like I was furniture in the apartment he planned to return to later. At 6:30, he came home and showered. He whistled while getting ready. Whistled, as if tonight was a treat. At 6:55, he walked into the living room, adjusting his watch. He kissed me on the cheek, quick, automatic, and said, "I'll text you when I'm on the way back." I nodded. He didn't notice that I didn't say, "Have fun." He didn't notice my fingers were clenched so hard my nails pressed into my palms. He walked out at exactly 7 p.m. The door clicked shut, and the apartment felt suddenly enormous, silent except for the hum of the fridge and my heartbeat in my ears. I stood there for a moment, breathing in the space he left behind. Then I turned toward the bedroom, toward the drawer, toward the ring, because something in me had shifted from hurt to clarity. If he wanted to test how much I'd tolerate, I was about to show him what I wouldn't. The apartment was too quiet after Daniel left. Not peaceful. Not calm. Too quiet. Like something had been removed and the walls hadn't adjusted yet. I stood in the bedroom for a long moment, staring at my reflection. The engagement ring on my finger caught the lamplight, flashing in soft gold pulses. 6 months ago, that ring had made me feel chosen. Tonight, it felt like collateral. I slid it off slowly. My finger felt strangely light without it, like I'd taken off a weight I didn't know I'd been carrying. I placed it back in its original velvet box and set it on the nightstand. Then I walked into the living room, sat down, and opened my laptop. If this was nothing, truly nothing, then preparing for the worst would only prove I was paranoid. But if it wasn't nothing, I refused to be unprepared. The lease was in my name, utilities in my name. Daniel had moved into my apartment last year. Legally, he was a guest. 30 days notice. I read the tenant laws twice, not because I didn't understand them, because I needed something steady, something factual, something that didn't tilt when emotions did. At 7:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Daniel, just got here. It's a nice place. She looks good." Forgot how much we used to laugh. There was a smiling emoji at the end. I stared at the message until my vision blurred slightly. "She looks good." He didn't have to say that. He chose to. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed, "Enjoy," then deleted it. No response would be my response. At 8:15, another message. "You'd actually like this bar. Great cocktails. Emma says hi." Emma says hi. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. Was I supposed to feel included? Was this transparency? Or was it a performance? My chest felt tight, but not in a crying way, in a clarifying way. At 8:47 p.m., I called Marcus. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Layla, everything okay?" "No," I said simply. I gave him the short version. Daniel, drinks, ex, not allowed to come. Marcus didn't interrupt. That's what I appreciated most about him. He let silence breathe. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. "That sounds like a power play." "I know." "What are you thinking?" I looked around my living room. The couch we picked together, the coffee table he insisted we change, the framed engagement photo on the shelf. "I'm thinking," I said quietly, "that I'm done auditioning for my own relationship." He was quiet for a second. "Do you need a place to stay?" "Maybe for a few days." "My couch is yours." After I hung up, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I started packing. Methodically, like I was leaving for a business trip. Clothes, laptop, toiletries, important documents. Every folded shirt felt like reclaiming space. At 9:22 p.m., my phone buzzed again. He's still hilarious. I forgot how easy it was with him. No pressure, you know? No pressure. My stomach flipped. No pressure compared to what? Compared to me. Compared to wedding planning? Compared to accountability? The next message came 5 minutes later. "You're really amazing for being cool about this tonight." There it was. Validation. He wanted credit for pushing my boundaries. I placed my phone face down on the table. By 10:15 p.m., 2 of my bags were packed. I found a box in the hallway closet and began placing his things inside. His watch collection. The cologne bottles lined up like trophies. The photo frame on his side of the bed. Each object felt smaller once separated from him. At 10:47 p.m., silence. No more texts. Either he was too busy laughing or too busy leaning closer. At 11:12 p.m., I sat on the couch with a glass of water, staring at the door. I tried to imagine him sitting across from Emma. Was he leaning forward the way he used to with me? Was he brushing his thumb across the rim of his glass when he laughed? Was she touching his arm when she smiled? My body reacted before my mind did. Heat rising in my chest, breath shallowing. But beneath the jealousy was something colder. Clarity. He wasn't just catching up. He was sampling. Seeing if the old flavor still appealed. At 11:47 p.m., my phone lit up again. Heading home now. Thanks for being so understanding tonight. I love you. I read it twice. Then I deleted it. He would walk in expecting warmth. He would walk in expecting the same woman he left. Instead, he would find me sitting in the living room, bags by the door, his belongings boxed neatly on the coffee table, the ring box placed deliberately beside it. This wasn't going to be screaming. This wasn't going to be dramatic. This was going to be calm. The key turned in the lock at exactly midnight. I heard his footsteps in the hallway, the faint echo of his shoes on tile. The door opened and he walked in, humming softly. He smelled like cologne and something else, something unfamiliar. "Layla?" he called lightly. "You still up?" He stepped into the living room. He was glowing. Hair slightly messy, lips curved in a relaxed smile. There was a brightness in his eyes I hadn't seen directed at me in weeks. Then he noticed the bags, the box, the ring case. His smile faltered. "Hey, what's all this?" His voice tried to stay casual, but I saw the flicker. "Sit down," I said calmly. His brows drew together. "Why? What happened?" I held his gaze. Our relationship did. The silence that followed was thick enough to taste. He let out a nervous laugh. "What are you talking about? I was gone 4 hours." "Exactly." He didn't understand yet, but he was about to. Daniel didn't sit at first. He stood there, staring at the packed bags like they were props in a play he hadn't rehearsed for. "Layla, what is this?" he asked again, slower now. I gestured to the chair across from me. "Please." He lowered himself into it carefully, perched on the edge, like the furniture might reject him. "I don't understand," he said. "We were fine this morning." I nodded. "Yes, we were." "You said you were okay with me seeing Emma." I said I understood. That's the same thing. It's not. My voice was steady, but inside my heart was pounding hard enough to make my fingertips tingle. He ran a hand through his hair, the same hair he'd styled so carefully an hour ago for someone else. "This is insane," he said softly. You're breaking up with me because I had drinks with someone I used to date? Was it just drinks? I asked. His jaw tightened. Yes. Then why did you tell me she looked good? He blinked. I was just being honest. Honest about what? That she looked nice. I don't know. It's not a crime to notice someone looks good. No, I agreed. It's not. But it matters who you say it to. His frustration started to rise. I could see it in the way his knee bounced slightly. You're twisting this, he said. We were just catching up. It wasn't a date. I leaned forward slightly. Two people who used to sleep together, dressing up, going out at night, laughing about old times, telling each other they look good, texting their fiancé about how easy it feels. He opened his mouth, then closed it. That's not a date? I asked quietly. His eyes flashed. You're overreacting. There it was. The word. I felt something settle in my spine, a quiet straightening. No, I said calmly. I'm reacting appropriately. He stood up abruptly and started pacing. So what? I'm not allowed to have a past? I'm not allowed to have friends? You're allowed to have boundaries, I replied. You're allowed to respect the person you're marrying. He stopped pacing. I do respect you. Then why couldn't I come? Silence. He looked away first. It would have been awkward, he muttered. For who? For everyone. Mostly for her? I asked gently. He didn't answer. The quiet stretched. You cared about her comfort more than mine, I said. That's not true. You laughed when I suggested coming. I was joking. You weren't. He exhaled sharply. You said you were fine with it. I wanted to see what you would do. His head snapped toward me. So this was a test? No, I said. This was information. He stared at me, genuinely confused now. I needed to see who you are when you think I'll just accept anything. His expression shifted. Not guilt, not yet, but calculation. I didn't do anything wrong, he insisted. Nothing happened. That's the problem. He frowned. What does that even mean? It means nothing had to happen for this to be wrong. I stood slowly, meeting him at eye level. It's about respect, Daniel. About whether you thought for even a second how this would feel for me. I told you, he shot back. I thought you'd be mature about it. Mature, I repeated softly. Or silent. His face flushed slightly. I can't control your insecurities, he said. I felt the words hit. Not because they were powerful, but because they were familiar. He'd used that tone before. That subtle repositioning where my reaction became the issue instead of his action. I didn't shrink this time. I'm not insecure, I said evenly. I'm observant. He ran both hands through his hair now, pacing again. You're throwing away 2 years over one night, he said, incredulous. No, I replied quietly. I'm ending 2 years because tonight showed me the pattern clearly. He stopped. What pattern? The way you make decisions that affect us without including me. The way you dismiss discomfort as drama. The way you frame my silence as maturity. He opened his mouth to argue, then paused, because he couldn't fully deny it. You've been taking me for granted, I said. That's not fair, isn't it? His breathing was heavier now. Mine was steady. I love you, he said finally, like it was a trump card. I know, I answered. And you're still doing this? Yes. His shoulders dropped slightly. This feels extreme, he said more quietly now. I walked to the coffee table and picked up the velvet ring box. I'm not angry, I said. If I were angry, I'd be yelling. I held the box out to him. I'm disappointed. He stared at it like it might explode. Layla, you need to decide what kind of man you want to be, I said gently. And I need to decide what kind of marriage I'm willing to have. His hand hovered before finally taking the box. His fingers trembled slightly. Is this really over one night? He asked again, but softer now. It's over the way you behaved when you thought I'd tolerate it. He swallowed. And what happens now? I stepped back, creating space between us. The lease is in my name, I said. Legally, I need to give you 30 days notice. Consider this the start. He looked around the apartment slowly, at the walls we painted together, the couch we picked out, the framed engagement photo still hanging above the shelf. I can't believe you're doing this, he whispered. I'm not doing this to us, I replied quietly. You did that when you decided tonight mattered more than how I felt. He stared at the ring box in his hand. For the first time since walking in, he wasn't defensive. He looked unsure, vulnerable, but not enough. Can we talk about this tomorrow? He asked, when you're less upset. I'm not upset, I said gently. I'm clear. And clarity is a much colder thing. Daniel didn't leave that night. Not immediately. After I gave him the 30-day notice, he stood there for a long time, holding the ring box like it was fragile evidence. Layla, he said finally, voice lower now, stripped of edge. You're making this bigger than it is. I shook my head slowly. No, I just stopped making it smaller. He exhaled through his nose, frustrated. Nothing happened, he repeated. You're acting like I cheated. You flirted, I said evenly. I did not. You told me she looked good. You said it felt easy. You said there was no pressure. That doesn't mean anything. It means you noticed the difference. He didn't respond. That silence told me more than any denial could. He moved toward the couch and sat down heavily, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. So what? He muttered. You're just done? Yes. He laughed once, hollow. Over drinks. Over respect. He lifted his head sharply. You keep saying that like I disrespected you. I told you about it. I didn't hide it. Transparency doesn't cancel intent, I replied. He frowned. You told me because you assumed I'd accept it. That's not true. You laughed when I suggested coming. He didn't deny that part this time. Instead, he changed direction. This is about your sister, isn't it? He asked suddenly. Rachel's always had a problem with me. I felt a flicker of anger then, not explosive, but sharp. This isn't about Rachel. She never thought I was good enough for you. This isn't about that either. It's about you being insecure and looking for a reason to run. There it was again, the subtle repositioning. I felt my pulse steady instead of spike. No, I said quietly. It's about me finally choosing not to stay. He stood again, pacing faster now. You're punishing me for being honest. I'm responding to what your honesty revealed. He stopped and looked at me like I was speaking another language. You're blowing up our future because I had dinner with someone I used to love. Drinks, I corrected. His jaw tightened. Why are you obsessed with that detail? Because you changed it when you talked to me. You said drinks, then coffee, then back to drinks. That's nothing. It's not nothing to me. The air felt heavier now. His phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it automatically. I noticed. Is that her? I asked calmly. He hesitated a fraction too long before picking it up. It's just a group chat, he said quickly. He turned the screen away from me. That small motion, protective, instinctive, felt louder than shouting. Are you still texting her? I asked. No. Another pause. Did she text you? He didn't answer. I felt the shift fully then. This wasn't about tonight anymore. It was about momentum. He was already sliding back toward her orbit. Let me see your phone, I said quietly. His head snapped up. What? If there's nothing inappropriate, then it shouldn't matter. That's crazy. No, I said. That's transparency. You don't trust me? Right now? No. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. That's insulting. So is flirting with your ex while wearing the blazer you wore on our first date? He opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he knew. You're being dramatic, he said again, but weaker now. And you're minimizing, I replied. The silence stretched between us. Then he did something I hadn't expected. He sank back onto the couch and put his head in his hands. I don't know why you're doing this, he muttered. You know I love you. I believe that you think you do, I said softly. He looked up, confused. But love isn't just feeling, I continued. It's behavior. His mother called 15 minutes later. I recognized the ringtone immediately. He hesitated before answering. Hey, Mom, he said, trying to sound normal. Pause. No, we're fine. Another pause. He glanced at me. Yeah, she's here. More silence. His shoulders tensed. I'll call you tomorrow, he said quickly and hung up. She knows? I asked. He rubbed his temple. I might have mentioned we argued. About? He didn't answer. About me being unreasonable, I guessed. He looked away. Daniel. She thinks you're overreacting, he muttered. Of course she did. His family had always subtly framed me as sensitive. At Thanksgiving, his mother once told me, smiling, "Daniel's always been independent. He doesn't like feeling controlled." Controlled. As if asking for partnership was control. "And what do you think?" I asked him now. He hesitated. And that hesitation was louder than anything else that night. Because if he truly believed I was wrong, he would have said it immediately. Instead, he looked unsure. "I think you're scared," he said finally. "Of what?" "Of losing me." The irony almost made me smile. "I'm not scared of losing you," I said quietly. "I'm scared of marrying someone who thinks I'll accept anything." He stood again, restless energy returning. "So what? You want me to cut her off completely? Never speak to her again?" "Yes." The word came out without hesitation. He blinked. "That's extreme." "No," I replied. "That's boundaries. She was part of my life for 3 years, and I'm supposed to be the rest of it." Silence. His phone buzzed again. He didn't pick it up this time, but the fact that it buzzed at all felt symbolic. A tether. "You haven't blocked her," I said. He didn't respond. "Have you?" "No," he admitted. "Why not?" "Because I don't hate her." "I'm not asking you to hate her. He stopped, frustrated. "I don't see why it has to be so black and white." Because for him, gray meant options. For me, gray meant instability. "You're not ready," I said softly. "For what?" "For marriage." He stared at me. "That's not fair." "It is." I stepped back toward my bags. "I won't compete with your past," I continued, "and I won't beg for priority." He looked suddenly smaller. "Are you really leaving tonight?" "Yes." "Where are you going?" "Marcus's place, just for a few days." He nodded slowly. "Rachel will love this," he muttered. "This isn't about Rachel. You're making it permanent." "No," I corrected gently. "You did." The room felt different now. Not explosive, but unraveling, like threads pulling loose one by one. He looked at me one more time, eyes softer now. "Layla, I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," I said honestly. And that's the problem. Because if he had meant to, at least it would have been intentional. But this was careless. And careless is harder to forgive. I left at 12:40 a.m. Not dramatically. Not slamming doors. I picked up my 2 bags, paused at the doorway, and looked at Daniel one last time. He was standing in the middle of the living room, the room that used to feel like ours, holding the ring box loosely in one hand. For a second, he looked like he might say something that would change everything. He didn't. "Drive safe," he said quietly. The politeness of it nearly broke me. I nodded once and stepped into the hallway. The door clicked shut behind me, and suddenly, I was alone. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. My reflection in the mirrored wall looked calm, almost detached. But when the doors opened to the parking garage and the cool air hit my face, something inside me cracked. Not loudly, just enough. I sat in my car with my hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at nothing. 2 years. 6 months engaged. Wedding plans. Deposits. Invitations half designed. Gone in 4 hours. My chest tightened. Not because I missed him, not exactly, but because of the life I had already pictured. The version of the future I had rearranged myself to fit. I drove to Marcus's apartment in silence. The city looked different at night. Emptier, more honest. When he opened the door, he didn't ask questions. He just stepped aside. His couch was already made up with blankets. "You want tea?" he asked gently. I shook my head. "Water's fine." I sat down, and for the first time since the confrontation, my hands started shaking. Marcus noticed but didn't comment. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I inhaled slowly. "I think so." That was the strange part. I wasn't hysterical. I wasn't doubting myself, but there was a heaviness pressing on my ribs. Grief, not for him, but for what I thought we were building. After Marcus went to bed, I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling. The silence felt different from the apartment's silence earlier. This one wasn't tense. It was open. And in that openness, doubt crept in. Was I too harsh? Was I too quick? What if nothing truly would have happened? What if I just destroyed my own engagement over pride? My phone vibrated on the coffee table. One missed call, then another, then another. I flipped it over. Should see missed calls, 11 voicemails, 32 text messages. I didn't open them. Instead, I stared at the dark screen, watching my own reflection in it. Was I strong? Or was I afraid of vulnerability? Because walking away felt powerful, but it also felt lonely. I rolled onto my side and closed my eyes. Sleep didn't come easily. My mind replayed the night in loops. Daniel laughing. Daniel saying she looked good. Daniel calling me mature. Daniel saying I was overreacting. Then a different memory surfaced. Last month, we were at dinner with friends. Someone asked how wedding planning was going. Daniel had laughed and said, "Layla's got spreadsheets for everything. I just show up." Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But later that night, I realized he hadn't mentioned one decision he'd made without me. It was subtle. He liked being admired. He liked being wanted. And tonight, Emma had wanted him. That's what hurt. Not that he saw her, but that he needed to see if he still could. Around 3:17 a.m., a new message came through. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. It was from Daniel. I told Emma what happened. She thinks you misunderstood. She said she didn't realize you'd be this sensitive. Sensitive. The word felt like a slap. Then another message. She said I seemed distant tonight, like I was thinking about you the whole time. I stared at that one longer. Then came the one that hollowed my chest completely. She thought we were already breaking up. Said I was flirting. I don't even know if I was. My throat tightened. He didn't even know. I set the phone down slowly. He wasn't denying it. He was confused. And that confusion told me everything. At 3:25 a.m., I finally allowed myself to cry. Not loud. Not dramatic, just quiet tears sliding into the pillow. I wasn't crying because I lost him. I was crying because I finally saw him clearly. And clarity can be brutal. I had loved him, truly. But somewhere along the way, I had loved him more than he respected me. And now, lying on someone else's couch in the middle of the night, I felt the full weight of that imbalance. It's terrifying to realize you almost married someone who didn't choose you first, who still needed external validation, who called your boundaries insecurity. The lowest point wasn't anger. It was the realization that I had slowly been negotiating with less, negotiating with crumbs, and calling it compromise. Around 4:10 a.m., exhaustion finally pulled me under. When I woke up a few hours later, sunlight streamed through Marcus's blinds. For a split second, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered. And instead of panic, there was quiet. Heavy, yes, but clean. My phone had stopped buzzing. The storm of messages had slowed. And beneath the grief, beneath the loneliness, beneath the doubt, there was something steady. I had chosen myself. And even in the darkest moment, even with tears still drying on my cheeks, I knew I hadn't made a mistake. The next morning smelled like coffee and toasted bread. Marcus was already dressed for work when I walked into the kitchen. Hair still messy, eyes swollen but steady. "You look surprisingly functional," he said gently, handing me a mug. "I feel functional," I replied. And that was true. Not happy, not relieved, but grounded. My phone sat on the counter between us, face down. "Have you checked them?" he asked. "Some." "And?" I hesitated. He told Emma what happened. Marcus's jaw tightened. Of course he did. "She thinks I misunderstood, that I'm sensitive." He let out a short breath. "That's convenient." I nodded. But then I told him about the 3:17 a.m. message, about Emma thinking they were already breaking up, about her saying he was flirting. Marcus went quiet. "She thought you were broken up?" he repeated slowly. "Yes." That means his behavior wasn't subtle. Exactly. That was the moment it solidified for me. It wasn't just my perception. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't insecurity. A neutral third party, the woman he went to see, thought he was acting single. That wasn't interpretation. That was evidence. At work later that afternoon, I finally listened to the voicemails. The first few were apologetic. "Layla, please pick up. You're blowing this out of proportion." Then defensive. "You're punishing me for being honest." Then frustrated. "My mom thinks you're having some kind of breakdown." Then desperate. "Please don't do this." The emotional shifts were rapid, almost textbook. And for the first time, instead of absorbing them, I observed them. He wasn't fighting for me. He was fighting for comfort, for control, for things to go back to how they were. Then I opened the long text he sent at dawn. "Emma said something last night that's been stuck in my head. She said if I was really happy, I wouldn't have needed to see her to check." I read that line 3 times. If I was really happy, he needed to check. Check what? If the spark was still there, if he still had access, if he still had options. My chest didn't tighten this time. It steadied. Because that sentence wasn't an apology. It was a confession. He had gone to see if something still existed between them, and he found out it did, at least for a few hours. I forwarded that message to Marcus with 1 line. Even she knew it was a test. He replied immediately, "Then you already have your answer." That afternoon, I left work early and drove back to the apartment to gather more of my things. Walking into the building felt surreal, like stepping into a version of my life that was already closing. When I unlocked the door, the air inside felt heavy. Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table in sweatpants at 3 p.m. He looked exhausted. Eyes red, hair messy, the ring box still sitting in front of him. He looked up when I walked in. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi." The apartment felt smaller somehow. He didn't approach me this time. Didn't argue. Didn't pace. "I didn't sleep," he admitted. "I did." He nodded slowly, absorbing that. "I read your message," I said calmly. His shoulders stiffened. "I didn't mean it like that," he rushed. "I didn't go there to check anything." "But you did," I replied gently. He swallowed. I don't know. It felt unfinished. Unfinished. The word echoed in the space between us. "Then you shouldn't be getting married," I said. He flinched. "It's not that simple." "It is." He ran a hand over his face. "She said I was sending mixed signals." "You were." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something in his expression shifted, less defensive, more honest. "I think I liked the attention," he admitted quietly. There it was. No denial, no reframing, just truth. "I liked knowing I still could," he added. "Still could? Still what?" "Still attract her? Still have that option? Still be desired?" "I think I've been taking you for granted," he continued, voice low. "You were steady, safe. I didn't think you'd leave." The air in my lungs paused for a beat. He didn't think I'd leave, and that was exactly the problem. I wasn't chosen. I was assumed. "I deserved more than being your safe option," I said calmly. "I know. You don't marry someone while wondering if something else still fits." He nodded slowly. "I think I panicked," he admitted. "The wedding, the finality. And instead of talking to me, you went to her." He didn't deny it. "I didn't plan it," he said weakly. "But you didn't stop it either." Silence. This was the turning point. Not because he begged, not because he apologized, but because he finally said the thing I needed to hear. He liked the attention. He needed to check. He assumed I wouldn't leave. That wasn't love. That was complacency. "I'm not angry anymore," I told him quietly. "I can see that," he said. "I'm just clear." His eyes filled slightly. "Is there any chance?" "No." The word didn't shake, didn't tremble. It landed clean. He nodded once, like he'd expected it. "I found a place," he said after a moment. "Amanda's friend has a room. I'll be out by next weekend." "Okay." We stood there in the kitchen that had once felt warm and shared. Now it felt transitional, temporary. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I know." And I believed him. But apology doesn't rebuild respect. I walked past him toward the bedroom to collect the rest of my clothes. He didn't follow, didn't argue, didn't try to convince. Because somewhere between last night and now, he realized something too. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't testing. I wasn't trying to scare him. I was done negotiating with less. And in that clarity, I felt something new. Not heartbreak, not rage, power, quiet, unshakable. Daniel moved out 8 days later. He did it quietly, no drama, no last-minute speeches, no grand gestures in the hallway to make neighbors curious. Just boxes. Just silence. I wasn't there when he finished packing. I chose not to be. Instead, I went to work that morning and buried myself in a project proposal that had been sitting half done for weeks. Numbers, deadlines, contracts, real things. When I came back that evening, the apartment felt lighter. His shoes were gone from the entryway. His cologne no longer lingered in the bathroom. The navy blazer wasn't hanging in the closet anymore. The space echoed differently, not empty, reclaimed. I walked into the bedroom and opened the drawer where I used to keep the ring box. It was empty now. A symbolic absence. My phone buzzed that night around 9 p.m. It was Rachel. "So," she said immediately, "is he officially out?" "Yes." "And how do you feel?" I paused, looking around my living room. The same couch, the same walls, but somehow not the same life. "Calm," I said. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "Good, because I've been waiting to say something." "Oh no." "Layla, he never liked that you didn't revolve around him." I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "At Thanksgiving, remember when you stepped outside to take a work call? He told Mom you were married to your job, like it was a joke." I hadn't known that. "He liked admiration," Rachel continued, "not partnership." The words didn't hurt. They clarified. "Are you okay hearing that?" she asked gently. "Yes," I answered honestly, because now it fits. A week later, I heard through a mutual friend that Daniel and Emma were officially together. Apparently, it became serious very quickly. The timing wasn't subtle. Marcus called me that evening. "You heard?" he asked. I did. "You okay?" I leaned back on my newly rearranged couch, the one I'd moved closer to the window, and looked at the ceiling. "I don't feel anything," I said truthfully. "That's impressive." "It's not about her," I explained. "If it wasn't Emma, it would have been someone else. The issue wasn't the woman. It was his need." Marcus hummed in agreement. A few days later, I ran into Daniel's mother at the grocery store. She spotted me near the produce aisle. Her smile was tight. "Layla," she said, "I was hoping we'd talk." I kept my tone polite. "About what?" "About the way you handled things." There it was. I waited. "You blindsided him," she continued. "He's been devastated." I let her words sit between us. "I didn't blindside him," I said calmly. "I responded." She sighed. "It was dinner with an old friend." "It wasn't." She studied my face, looking for guilt. "You could have fought for him," she added. That almost made me laugh. "I shouldn't have to fight for someone who's already mine," I replied gently. Her expression hardened. "Well, Emma seems more understanding." There it was. Comparison. I smiled politely. "Then that's good for them." And I meant it. Because here's the thing no one prepares you for. When you finally walk away from something that doesn't align, the universe doesn't collapse. It rearranges. 3 months later, I stood in my living room holding a paint roller. I'd repainted the bedroom, a soft, neutral color Daniel would have called boring. I'd bought plants and somehow kept them alive. I replaced the old coffee table with one I actually liked. I stopped decorating around someone else's taste. Marcus came over that Saturday with donuts, like he always did now. He looked around and grinned. "This feels like you again." "It is," I said. "You're not even a little smug about being right?" he teased. I thought about that. About the fact that Daniel and Emma were already posting filtered photos together. About the whispers that they'd moved fast. About the way his mother avoided eye contact in public now. No, I wasn't smug. Because being right doesn't bring joy. Being free does. Rachel texted me that afternoon. "Ran into Daniel. He asked how you're doing." I replied, "Tell him I'm good." She sent back a laughing emoji. "He doesn't look good," she added. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because it didn't matter anymore. The fallout wasn't explosive. There was no dramatic revenge, no scandal, Just consequences unfolding quietly. Daniel chose validation over stability, and now he had to live inside that choice. As for me, I stopped explaining myself, stopped replaying the argument, stopped wondering if I'd been too harsh. Because every time I walked into my apartment and felt peace instead of tension, I knew. Peace is the loudest proof. 6 months ago, I would have replayed that Wednesday night over and over. I would have analyzed every word, wondered if I'd been too rigid, too proud, too unwilling to compromise. But tonight, I'm sitting on my couch, with a book in my lap and the windows open. The air feels light. There's no buzzing phone, no subtle tension humming under the surface, no feeling of being measured against someone from the past, just quiet. And for the first time in a long time, quiet doesn't scare me. It steadies me. A few weeks ago, Daniel showed up one last time. He knocked around 9 p.m., holding a manila envelope. Some mail got forwarded to me, he said. I didn't invite him in at first. He looked different, less polished, less certain. I just wanted to say, he continued, I know now that you were right. I didn't respond immediately. He swallowed. I think I confused comfort with commitment and attention with love. I nodded slowly. That's honest, I said. He looked at me like he expected something else. Forgiveness, maybe. I thought you'd always stay, he added quietly. I almost did, I replied. That silence held more truth than any argument we'd had. Are you happy? He asked. Yes, I answered, and I meant it. Not because I'd met someone new, not because my life had become dramatic or exciting, but because I had stopped shrinking, because I had stopped negotiating with less, because I had chosen myself without rage, without revenge, without theatrics. He nodded once, like he understood, maybe for the first time. I hope you find someone who appreciates you, he said softly. I already did, I replied. He tilted his head slightly. Who? Me. This time, he didn't laugh. He just nodded again. After he left, I locked the door and didn't look through the peephole. I didn't text Rachel. I didn't call Marcus. Some endings don't need commentary. They need closure. Here's what I learned. Love isn't proven by how much you tolerate. It's proven by how consistently someone protects your boundaries. Respect isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's choosing your partner even when no one's watching, even when an old flame invites you for drinks. And if someone needs to check whether they're still curious about someone else before marrying you, they've already answered the question. I don't hate Daniel. I don't hate Emma. I don't even regret the 2 years, because those 2 years taught me something invaluable. The moment you stop accepting crumbs, you realize you were always worthy of the whole table. I'm not afraid of being alone anymore, because I know what it feels like to be alone in a relationship, and that is far worse. So if you're watching this and wondering whether you're overreacting, if you're questioning your instincts, if someone is calling your boundaries insecurity, pause. Listen to yourself. Clarity may hurt, but it will never betray you. And sometimes the bravest thing a woman can say isn't stay. It's enough.